Call to order the September 10th, 2014 Portland Development Commission meeting. Ann, would you call the roll?
Chair Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Dixon?
Here.
Commissioner Molas? Commissioner Wilhoit?
Here.
Evidently, Commissioner Molas is going to be here about 3:30. Commissioner reports. I will start out. I'm going to report, but I'm glad I made it. I was in Winnipeg, Canada this morning at 10 o'clock. And, oh, there we go. And my plane was a little bit late, so I was starting to get nervous, but I'm here. Let's see, in the last month with PDC Business, I attended the Lentz Grown Story Yard grand opening, which was a interesting event to see, and all the energy and activity in Lentz. I attended a meeting and spoke at the Professional Service Providers organization at O'Neill Electric, and I think had a good interaction with that community of contractors. I toured the PNCA, and last week I met with Sam Brooks of Awami in preparation for speaking to that group this Friday. And I'll report on that next time. Commissioner Dixon.
I wanted to make a comment. I was really excited last week when I read in the paper the announcement of the second PDX Startup Challenge winners, and I know Patrick's going to talk more, so I won't steal his glory, but it was a really, just, you know, we've been hearing about it since last summer and all the applicants and just the excitement around this second startup challenge and the fact that we made it really intentional to be diverse and to be inclusive to lots of different companies and to see the response. It really shows that there is a level of excitement around diversity in the city, and I just believe that's really what's going to make great cities, and these companies look fantastic. So I just wish them all the success as they move forward. They'll be moving into their new office spaces and getting their startup money, but I mean, it starts with an opportunity. Everybody gets one when they make it in business, and so just to see that we've provided this for these companies, it was something that really made me proud to be associated here at the Portland Development Commission, and just to see how much, you know, work and effort and energy we put into that. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilhoit.
Yes, thanks, Chair Kelly. I would just want to report on the August 28th meeting in the mayor's office that I attended with Executive Director Quinton regarding the development that looks like it's moving forward at Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Alberta. And of course, that's the grocery store with natural grocers that is now on the table and being discussed. So it was very nice to be part of that meeting and to see all the community members. Mayor Hales and Commissioner Salzman were present, and other community leaders talking about what we'd like to see preliminarily with regard to that project. I know a working group was developed to focus on that project, the design, and there are some housing elements attached to that particular project in Northeast Portland. So that was a very productive meeting. I think great for the community to see something come out of that. I know that's on our agenda today. Majestic Realty or Development will be here talking with us about the project a bit. So that was a very exciting event for us, and we look forward to that moving forward. And if nothing else, it shows that people continue to work for things that should happen. And that is something that we want to see happen in that area, and looking forward to that moving forward.
Thank you. Executive Director Quinton.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Kelly, commissioners, and I think as our commissioners are reporting, there's been a lot of great news over the past month, and you've touched on a few. The Natural Grocers announcement was a big milestone announcement for us. The work is just beginning, and you'll hear from staff at the end of the board meeting today where we go next. But we're quite excited to be at this point, and we appreciate the board's continued support for this project. It's been about 9 months since you first approved the DDA on that deal. And then, of course, Commissioner Dixon did highlight our Startup PDX Challenge, which we just announced the 6 winners. There's 5 merit winners as well. As she noted, the focus has been on inclusion and on identifying the entrepreneurs of color, women entrepreneurs, and giving them a chance to succeed as well. So we're quite excited about it. We've had a ton of positive responses, and the process for them is just beginning. We're hosting a kickoff event on the 25th of September, so you're all welcome to attend, but it's open to the public, and it's a chance to kind of take a look at the space and to be to get to meet the winners and the merit winners. They'll move into the space in October. That space actually is here in Old Town. All the information on this is on our website. You can go to our website, pdc.us, and see each of the winners, but also learn about the upcoming events. But it is quite exciting. Some of the other news that has come out since our last meeting, I think you all know that hopefully you'll have a new board member soon. The mayor announced his intention to nominate Mark Edlen to the PDC board. Mark is the president and CEO of Gerding Edlen Development, obviously quite a reputation in and not just the Portland development community, but around the country as a leader in sustainable development. Right now, that nomination goes to the City Council for approval on October 1st. So if all goes well, we should have Mark on the board by our October 8th board meeting. Some other news, you probably read that there was an announcement by the port of a proposed new propane export terminal there, $500 million investment by a Canadian company that is proposing to export kind of clean burning propane from the port, mainly to Asian markets. This is an extraordinary investment, not just because of its size. We tried to look back through the history, records that we have. We're not sure that there's ever been a single private investment of this magnitude. Things like the Night Challenge obviously are in that range, or if not greater, but something like a company coming in and making an investment of this size, I think it's unprecedented. So the impact to the local governments is massive. One estimate is that it'll be $4 million annually to the Portland City General Fund. And the reason why we actually can begin to talk about those tax dollars is that they haven't asked for any tax incentives. They haven't asked for enterprise zone incentives, which would keep those property tax revenues off the books for a while, or obviously urban renewal dollars. So it really is quite extraordinary, and so we're looking forward to working with the port to help that company move forward with its plans. On a much smaller scale, but also quite noteworthy, was the news that Assurity Northwest, which has been one of our private companies, partners in Lentz, they anchored the development that we have there on Foster. We helped them with their headquarters building on Foster. They've been acquired by Propel Insurance, and so they're moving downtown. So it's a little bit of kind of bittersweet news, but it's nice to have a successful company. It's good outcome for them, and we're quite confident that that building will be reoccupied by another company. In fact, we're already in conversations with various interested parties. So I think it shows that success can happen in communities like Lentz. Another great news story on the company front. We had the news that Aruba Networks, which is a California-based wireless networking company, announced plans to open a large office here in Portland. We were in competition with a variety of other states for this office, including places like Colorado, Nevada, and Texas, Arizona, a lot of our typical competitors. And while there was a little bit of incentives from the state, we basically sold them on coming to Portland as just a competitive place to do business that did not require significant financial incentives, but we really worked hard on selling the value proposition of Portland. And I think they look to be a great partner. They really get what we're trying to do here. And I just want to acknowledge Chris Harder, who heads up our economic development team, as well as Jared Weiner, who is our point person on the software industry for all of their work. Some other things that happened during the past month. We sponsored Tech Fest Northwest. That was on August 15th. That event continues to grow. I think they had another successful weekend. Chair Kelly mentioned the Glens Grown Story Yard. That was on the 18th. That was a fun evening. Really inspiring art installation in Lents. I had the chance to host the Portland Business Journal's Better Bricks Award event, which was the morning of August 22nd. And what was nice about that is I got to actually hand out all the awards, and a lot of them were our projects or folks that we partner with on a regular basis. So PNCA was received an award for their project. Beam Development received an award for their work on the east side. I know I'm forgetting others, but it was nice to see a number of our projects being honored there. Just last week, we had a contingent of both PDC staff and partners from our neighborhood work attend a conference in San Francisco called the SOCAP conference, and SOCAP stands for Social Capital, and it's a big conference of social impact investors and social entrepreneurs. So it's really a gathering of like foundations and others who put money to work in real socially responsible ways, as well as the different organizations that do this kind of work. And so we took representatives from POIC, from NAIA, from the J District, and from Rosewood, along with Kimberly Branham and Kate Dean. They were in San Francisco, and they presented the work that we're doing with our Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative districts. And it really was to highlight not just that there's a lot of good work going on in Portland, and these are representative organizations that are doing this great work, but also that there's a more complete story to Portland. And, you know, people know Portlandia, they come visit, they spend time downtown. There's a whole kind of sense that people get that when they come to Portland, but they don't go to East Portland, they don't go to the neighborhood. So we want to make sure people understand that there is other parts of this city equally interesting, but also there's tremendous need in other parts of Portland. And I think that generated some interesting conversation among potential funders about their work in Portland and how they might help us doing the work that we do. Also last week, the Hispanic Chamber here in Portland had their Hispanic Heritage Celebration Dinner. That's the 20th. They're celebrating their 20th anniversary. They've been one of our longtime partners, particularly working with small businesses, and so that was great. And then on Saturday, I had the dual pleasure of attending NAIA's annual powwow, which happens at their facility on Columbia Boulevard, and that's an annual event they do. The Native community comes together, and I was one of many folks who received an honor for being a great partner for NAIA. And then I went from there to the J District, to the night market, which is just kind of hitting it out of the park. Thousands of people show up every Saturday. Brought my family with me, my 16-year-old son, who's bigger than I am now, and we can never keep him fed. Like, hit every single vendor in the place, so he was quite happy. This Saturday is the last Saturday for the year. They had 4 Saturdays, and then they'll bring it back next year. And I'm guessing that they'll definitely be bringing it back in a big way, because there's been a tremendous outpouring of support for that. J District is one of our MPI districts, just to remind everybody. So it's just great to see how they've taken that idea and run with it. And then I just want to acknowledge that the mayor just returned from his trip to Japan, primarily to visit Sapporo, which is our sister city, but he also spent time in Tokyo. And Japan is one of our, if not our kind of longest trading partner. And so we work very hard to maintain deep relationships with Japan. Mitsu Yamasaki from our team accompanied the mayor on this trip, and I'm hearing early reports that the trip was quite productive, and so there's be a lot of follow-up from that. But really appreciate the mayor taking time out of his busy schedule to help continue to build those relationships. Couple upcoming events I just want to highlight. Tomorrow at the Portland building, which is at 1900 Southwest 4th, from 4 to 6 p.m., we're going to have an open house for our proposed URA amendment. So there's a process that's underway to amend 6 of our urban renewal areas, and so we've been doing a fair amount of work with our advisory committee, and now we're ready to share some of the the proposals with the public. So everyone's invited to attend. That's once again tomorrow from 4 to 6 in the afternoon. Friday night is the Latino Network's annual event, the Noche Bella event. This is a relatively new event compared to their sister organization, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but went last year and a fantastic event, and they're doing great work. Next week is Oregon Best Fest. Oregon Best is a signature research center supported by the state of Oregon to promote the clean tech industry, and so that continues to grow as well, and they provide grants and other support to folks who are trying to commercialize innovation coming out of the state university system around clean tech. They have Chandra Brown coming as part of to be one of their featured speakers. Chandra Brown used to be she used to head up United Streetcar here, and then she was picked by President Obama to be the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing at the Department of Commerce, and so she's now travels the world promoting U.S. manufacturing, and she's coming to talk at this event. You can go to OregonBest.org if you want to learn about that. And then when you hear the presentation on next steps for the development at Northeast MLK in Alberta, we'll talk about the housing process, the process that housing is going through to determine priorities for the additional $20 million in affordable housing money, how that will be spent. So they've kicked off a series of 4 community meetings. The first one is on the 18th, so a week from tomorrow, at the Highland Christian Center. You can go to the Portland Housing Bureau's website to find out when all 4 forums are. But they're some are in Northeast, but some are actually like in Gresham, because they want to reach out to the entire African American community and recognizing that some folks have moved to East Portland and to places like Gresham. So you can go there for their that full schedule. PortlandOregon.gov is the city's website, and you can find the Housing Bureau on that tab. And then I told Commissioner Moles I would delay until he got here, but I'm not. I'm going to run out of material. But anyway, the last thing we always like to do is to recognize new PDC employees or employees who've been promoted, and we have one today to recognize. This is Mark Olivo here, who is a new associate IT student intern. The IT department uses a lot of students who are studying here locally to help us out. So he's one of our IT technicians. He's studying at Portland State University, and he previously worked as a student IT support technician at the PSU Student Health and Counseling Center. Is that what that is? Yeah. As well as with other areas of PSU, enrollment management and student affairs. So welcome, Mark. We have another Mark in IT, and so he's referred to as Mark O or Marco as opposed to Mark Paget, who does a lot of our IT work. But anyway, welcome. That's all I have. So I don't know what we're going to do about Commissioner Moles.
Welcome, Marco. Can we go ahead with this? And
Yeah. 30 days if he's not here to vote on it. So we're just, pardon?
We have 3.
We have 3. Okay, let's start we can start the presentation. So the way the procedure works is with 4 board members present, if all 4 vote for an item, then it's effective immediately. If it's only 3 votes, then it takes 30 days to be effective. So that's the consequence of going forward and voting before Commissioner Moles is here. So we can start with the presentations and see when he shows up.
all right. So we're going to take on Resolution 7072, authorizing the purchase and sale agreement to convey 0.23 acres of real property in downtown Waterfront urban renewal area to McWhinney, Mortenson Development, and Sage Hospitality for $2.5 million. And Eric Jacobson is our staff person to talk about this.
Good afternoon, Chair Kelly and Commissioners. My name is Eric Jacobson with the Real Estate and Lending Team.
Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Abwaf, Central City Manager with PDC.
And so we're here to talk about a purchase and sale agreement with McWhinney, Mortenson Development, and Sage Hospitality to sell the Southwest 3rd and Taylor property for $2.5 million. And representatives, all three of those companies are here today, and I'm sure they would like to share their vision for how they're planning to develop this property with you.
So first, I'm going to just give a little bit of background on PDC's history with this site and then where we see it as being in strategic alignment with some of our goals for the Central City today. As you may have noted from the report, PDC actually acquired this property 15 years ago for the city to construct above-ground garage. And we've worked systematically since that time to realize redevelopment of that site that did align with city goals and priorities. And the transaction before you today is clearly important given the 15 years history that we have on the site and supports our current strategies in two important ways. First, the property is on the eastern edge of the downtown retail core, or the Pioneer District, and new uses like the proposed hotel in lieu of a vacant site will enliven the district and support downtown retail, including some of the smaller retailers and vacancies that are adjacent to the site. Second, as you'll note, it's a market rate transaction, and the sale of the property will generate about $2.5 million in land sale revenue into the downtown Waterfront urban renewal area. As you may recall, we've made significant commitment to invest in the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan to the tune of about $57 million across the River District and downtown waterfront areas. And this transaction allows us the flexibility to respond to Old Town Chinatown opportunities within that URA, which has more limited resources than the River District, should additional resources be needed for projects to move forward. So at that point, and last but not least, as with our other market rate transactions to date, the transaction does comply with our equity policy and green building policy as well. And with that, I'll hand it to Eric to go over the transaction.
Thanks. So this map shows the location of the property. It's in Portland Central Business District. Also shown on this map, highlighted in that pink color, is the boundary of the downtown waterfront urban renewal area. So the property itself is 100 feet by 100 feet. It's a quarter block or 10,000 square feet, located at the northeast corner of Southwest 3rd and Southwest Taylor Street. It's vacant. It has a small easement adjacent to the director building on the north property line. It has some minor environmental contamination that we estimate the cost between $20,000 and $30,000 to address. And it has an appraised value of $2,520,000. We began this disposition process fairly recently. It's gone fairly quickly. We issued a request for offers in May 2014, just a few months ago. From that, we received 4 offers, which were evaluated according to the criteria in the request for offers. And from that, we selected the McWhinney, Mortenson Development, and Sage Hospitality team. And the key factors in their selection were their team experience, ability to execute on projects such as this. Their financial offer was considerably higher than other offers we received. And their development schedule indicated to us that they had a feasible development and they were looking to execute on it fairly quickly. In fact, they want to, according to their plans, they would like to begin construction in spring of 2015 and conclude spring or early summer of 2016. They're proposing to build a hotel. It will be an AC by Marriott hotel. It'll be about 204 rooms, 13 floors, about $48 million total investment in developing the project. They're not planning to provide any vehicular parking. Similar to other hotels in the downtown, they're planning to enter into agreements with parking operators for the provision of parking. And as I mentioned, they're planning a mid-2016 opening. So the key terms of the purchase and sale agreement are listed in an attachment to your resolution, but here's some of the highlights. Is the purchase price is $2.5 million. They will provide 3 earnest money payments to us that total 10% or $250,000. A portion of that, they can reduce the earnest money payments to 8% if they meet certain criteria, including submitting a franchise application to Marriott along with a franchise application fee and participate in a design review hearing. PDC is not investing any resources in this project. The development must commence within 36 months of the execution of the purchase and sale agreement, and the developer is responsible for addressing that small amount of environmental contamination on the property. In terms of milestones, although they're planning to move fairly quickly, they have a 180-day or 6-month due diligence period. We're expecting them to close within 12 months of execution of the purchase and sale agreement. They do have the option to extend that closing date by up to 6 months by purchasing extensions at $15,000 for each month. And PDC retains a repurchase right in the event they don't commence construction within 24 months of closing on the property. So that really concludes our presentation. We're asking you to approve Resolution 7072. And with that, we'll take any questions you have.
Commissioner Dixon, any questions, staff?
I didn't really have any major questions. Obviously, just the parking, I think, was just one of the issues that I addressed. It's kind of ironic considering it was going to originally be a parking lot. But anyway, so I'm sure that they've thought about this because clearly they're the ones that have to deal with it more than we do, and it's a market rate transaction. So that was, if anything, that stood out to me.
Happy to see you.
Just in time.
Just in time.
Just in time commissioning.
You have to say yes or no right now.
Charles?
Yes, just tagging on Commissioner Dixon's question, just a couple. Now, the parking itself, is there any concern about capacity in the area?
We aren't aware of any concern with capacity, and I think the development team could probably answer this question as well. What I understand is that their experience is that a very small percentage, somewhere between 15 and 20% of their customers actually have a car, which is actually a fairly small number of customers that would actually need to park on a daily basis. So it's the parking demand associated with this hotel, according to their numbers, is not very large.
Okay. And the terms regarding due diligence and the 6 30-day extensions, I know every deal is a unique deal. Is that just something we should accept as reasonable within the scope of negotiating a deal? Is there anything unusual about that we need to talk about?
What we've learned over the past year or two on these market rate transactions is that, the majority of developers don't want to close on a property until they have absolute certainty that they can build what they want to build. And if it's in a design review district, such as this property is, there's a little bit of uncertainty in terms of going through that process and getting the approval for the project you want to build. And there's also a little bit of uncertainty about how long it's going to take you. So I think as the developers negotiate with us, what they're looking for is, as they go through that process, if they're 80% of the way through the process, but they don't yet have their approval yet, they don't want to close on the property because they don't have 100% certainty, and they want to just get the extension while they complete that last 20% of work.
Okay. And then there's been discussion over time with our friends across the river and the Convention Center Hotel about hotel capacity in the downtown market. And I'm curious if this hotel coming on, there was a new hotel built in the Pearl not long ago, wasn't there?
Correct.
Does this cause any concern or have any anticipated impact on the Convention Center Hotel, or are we fine?
So when we were going through the evaluation and the selection process, when we issued the RFO and received this proposal, that's one of the questions we asked of this team was whether or not developing this hotel would have any conflict with the Convention Center Hotel. And the answer we got back from this team was no. They're really two separate markets in terms of what's happening at the Convention Center and what's happening in downtown. There have been one other hotel developed in the Pearl District, and there's one other planned at the south end of downtown as well. And so we've asked this team, do they have any concern about that in terms of capacity? And the answer we've got back is no, that there's enough demand that, and again, I think they will, I think this would be a good question to ask them. They have information on the daily rates and occupancy in the downtown, and they substantiate this investment.
So we'll hear more, but
Sure.
I think, we can't know everything, but that's a question that popped in my mind when I read it. And then finally, the design review process, that's something we would fully anticipate they would participate in, I would assume.
Correct, yes. Yeah, in fact, yeah, they've already submitted their application for their first design advice request.
Okay, thanks. I don't have anything else.
Commissioner Mullis, you must have a long list of questions.
Well, I apologize for being here late. I left my meeting at a time that I thought would get me here about 3:15, and alas, it did not work. So I'll listen a little bit longer and get better in the flow of the conversation.
Well, we will thank you, and we'll have some of the members of the team come up and talk with us. From Sage Hospitality, we have William Bjelland. Did I get close? Come on up. Ryan Van Horn from McWhinney, and Bob Matkin from Mortenson. Welcome, gentlemen.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Kelly and Commissioners. We really want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us and hear our vision for this site. Want to take a few minutes to explain our vision for the project, a little background about the market, describe our companies and why we're working together. So as you can see on the photo there, the hotel that we plan to build is called AC by Marriott. AC by Marriott is a new company that Marriott Corporation purchased from Europe. They currently have 75 hotels across France, Spain, and Italy. Marriott purchased the company a couple of years ago, and their intention is to bring that brand to the United States. They currently have a number of projects under pre-development and under construction. The ones under construction include Miami Beach, New York City, and New Orleans. So this brand that Marriott is bringing to the United States, it's a contemporary, high design, geared towards the business traveler and leisure traveler, and specifically for the new generation that's coming up, the millennial generation. So the hotel, because of its contemporary design, and if you look at most kind of typical hotel boxes today, the Hiltons of the world, the Marriotts of the world, the Hyatts and Westins of the world, they tend to be pretty plain Jane, and you could be in Minneapolis, or you could be in New York City, or you could be in Texas. It doesn't matter, they look exactly the same. This concept that Marriott is bringing to the United States is a complete departure from that, and the fact that they want the hotel to reflect the sense of place of the community. So design is very important, and they've given a lot of latitude to developers and architects and interior designers and the city's input into design to have creativity. So it's a wonderful, wonderful concept. What we plan to build on this site specifically is a 204-room hotel. It will have approximately 2,000 square feet of meeting space, which is very little. Typical hotels will be in the 20, 30, 40,000 square foot range. It will have on the lobby level a small breakfast area, a small bar for kind of evening drinks and small plates, and several breakout business center areas for folks who want to hold meetings. One interesting concept that they have for this specific brand is a company called Liquid Space. They are a online kind of meetings facilitator. So if you're a company working for Aruba or working for Deloitte & Touche, you can just look online and say, I need a meeting space in Portland, and it will pop up with our hotel, and they can book the room directly. They don't have to go through us, and they can come in and use the space for their various meetings that they need to do during the day. So again, it's really, really geared towards the kind of younger millennial folks. From a kind of benefit to the city perspective, this development, once it's open, will create 70 direct jobs. And on top of that, we'll have about 50 induced jobs. And by induced, I mean things like restaurants and retail stores, taxis, other functions that support the hotel outside of the actual box. From a neighborhood location on 3rd and Taylor, hotels are wonderful attributes to a neighborhood because they really engage an area. So the property, of course, will be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's going to provide a lot of action in this specific corridor of downtown Portland. From a tax perspective, it's going to be pretty lucrative for the city itself. Over a 20-year period, we estimate that we'll collect $43 million in occupancy taxes. A vast majority of that goes specifically to the city and the general fund, and a small portion goes to the county and a smaller portion goes to the state. From a property tax perspective, we estimate that we'll pay $16.7 million over a span of 20 years. From a payroll perspective to the state, we'll produce about $3 million in payroll taxes. And from a kind of development fee permitting perspective to the city itself, it'll be over $2 million in the next couple of years as we develop the property. Your specific question about, you know, does the market need another hotel? And the answer is clearly yes. So I work for Sage Hospitality, and we currently operate the Courtyard here in City Center, as well as the Nines. Both properties over the last 12 months have 85% occupancy. When we look at our competitive set, the kind of greater hotels in downtown Portland, they've generally been in the 80 to 85% occupancy range over the last 3 years. And just to give you perspective, in order to get to those levels of occupancies, it means during the peak summer months for Portland, you are 100% filled every single night, 7 days a week. During the kind of shoulder seasons, lower end seasons, you're busy that, you know, Monday through Thursday when you have the business traveler in, so you're probably 90 to 100% occupied. Then on the weekends, you're a bit lower. So right now, the city doesn't have enough supply, actually. And with these, you know, what you talked about before about Ruba coming in, other kind of tech companies coming in, several life science projects going up, and you look outside and you see all these cranes building new office space. If the market today can't handle, the supply can't handle the demand that's out there, and you've got more things coming in, all of this new supply will certainly be absorbed by this demand that's there today and the demand that's going to be coming in the future. From a schedule perspective, our intention is to close on the property in the spring. And this is, of course, if it's going according to plan with the design commission reviews, et cetera. And with that, we will have a construction timeline where we'll be opening in late June, early July. That way we can take advantage of the 4th of July weekend and the great summer months that happen here in Portland. In the deal, we have 3 folks who are in partnership together. Mortenson is one of the co-developers. Bob Mackin here is representing Mortenson. They will be a co-developer of the property as well as the construction team. Ryan Van Horn from McWhinney is also a co-developer of the property. And Sage Hospitality will be the hotel manager. From the brand side of things, again, AC by Marriott will be the brand, and it's backed by the largest and strongest flag in the United States, Marriott Corporation. And from a kind of design and architecture, interior design perspective, Sarah Architects here in downtown Portland will be our folks. I'll let Bob quickly talk about some of his items, and go ahead, Bob.
Okay. Bob Mackin, Morton Construction. Good afternoon. On the construction end, you know, we're excited to be part of this team. We've developed many projects with Sage Hospitality. This will be our 9th. We started developing with them in the late 90s, and recently just finished the Hotel Commonwealth in Boston. As he said, we're really excited to get this thing going. We have, I think, an aggressive but a very realistic schedule to get through the design review process. There was a question asked whether we'd go through that process. We intend to go through that process. We're excited to be part of that. And thus far, we've invested $100,000 into the project to get the design started. As you can see from your packet to what was presented today, Sarah's moving right along. There's no pencil down or pencil up period. We've both submitted for the pre-app meetings as well as the DAR. We have the pre-app tomorrow morning, DAR scheduled for September 25th. So moving right along on that, and we're planning on spending another $500,000 or $500,000 in the next 2 months to keep this progression. By the end of the year, and actually, we're planning on closing in spring of 2015. And prior to closing, we'll be investing about $1.7 million in the project. Another question is job creation. On the construction end, Will talked about the job creation on his end. On the construction end, we're estimating about 275 direct jobs and about 300 indirect jobs that will be created through this hotel using the metrics we use on construction projects.
And Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan Van Horn with McWhinney. Thanks for having us. I just want to talk a little bit about the momentum, obviously, that Bob had just referenced. For us, this is a real project, and we're very eager to get this project going and in the ground as soon as possible. Great opportunity for not only us sitting here, but also for the city as well. In talking about our relationships, this is actually the fourth project that McWhinney has teamed up with Sage as well. And most recent one we just completed is the Union Station project in Denver, which has been actually a huge success. In addition to the projects that we've done with Sage, we've actually done 8 other hotel buildings in 3 states, and 4 of those were with Marriott as well. So we have a lot of background as well going back with Marriott and with Sage, and we think that we have a really good team here built up together.
Great. And Commissioner Dixon, I believe you brought up the point about parking, and you as well. We don't foresee that parking will be an issue for our property. As Eric had mentioned during his initial presentation, our hotels here today, the Courtyard City Center, as well as the Nines, on average, 15 to 20% of our guests who come will bring a car with them. So with approximately 204 rooms, if we're there for a sold-out night, we'll have 40, 50 cars in the area. And when if you ever go to the site and you look directly across the street, there's a large multi-level parking deck there. So it's direct access from the front door of our future hotel. Off to the corner, there's another structured parking lot. Off to the side, there are some surface lots, and all around the Justice Center, a bunch of other office buildings, they all have parking as well. And the great thing about hotel guest stay usage for parking is that it's counter to the normal usage. So office buildings, of course, are full for parking during the day. We're the opposite, we're full at night. So we do not foresee any issues whatsoever in parking capacity. We'll work with a third-party operator like we do in most markets.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do we have any questions from any of the commissioners?
Yeah, best of luck.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks for investing in our city.
We love the city, and we look forward to investing more. Great.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So do we have a conflict if we're Marriott Reward members?
Yeah, I think
I'm
you-
saying that I am.
I'm not sure that we're young enough to stay at that hotel, Charles.
That doesn't sound like it, so.
Okay. Resolution 7072, do I have a motion for approval?
I move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 6, Resolution 7073, authorizing the purchase, sale, and sale agreement to convey .67 acres of real property in downtown Waterfront Urban Renewal District to Gerding Edlen Development for $2.6 million. Sarah Harpole and Eric Jacobson. Do we have anyone here representing Gerding Edlen?
We do. Jill Sherman from Gerding Edlen's here. Good afternoon again, Chair
afternoon.
Kelly, long time. Eric Jacobson with the Real Estate Lending Team.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Harpole with the Central City team.
And we're here to present a purchase and sale agreement for Block 8L, which is highlighted in this map in red. Our partner on this is Gerding Edlen Development, and we're selling the property to Gerding Edlen for $2.6 million, less the necessary costs for environmental remediation and archaeological investigation, and I'll describe those in more detail later on. Shown on this map is the location of the property in red. It's in the Old Town Chinatown neighborhood. It has a very good location in many respects. It is right across the street from Waterfront Park, and it's directly on the light rail route, and it's in a very walkable, growing neighborhood, as well as being adjacent to some of the nearby anchors that have been developed in the past several years: Mercy Corps, University of Oregon in the White Stag building, and the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine, which shares Block 8 with this property.
So as you'll see, the proposed project will activate a underutilized property currently owned by the Portland Development Commission with an active 24/7 use, and is strategically aligned with a number of PDC's policies and plans. This includes the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan, and it will also implement and comply with PDC's equity plan and the green building policy. For a little context, the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan was recently endorsed by City Council on August 6, 2014. The goal of the action plan is to create a vibrant, safe, and economically healthy neighborhood in Old Town Chinatown. This strategy focuses really on three objectives. It's a comprehensive approach to focusing on the built form, the place, tenanting the place, and it speaks to management then of that place. It's also a comprehensive approach to leveraging investment both from our public and private partners. So PDC committed in this year's budget $19 million, and the action plan recommends a total investment of $57 million over the 5-year term. This enables us to use our standard programs, our loan and grant programs. We're also piloting a seismic program for the first time in Old Town Chinatown and introducing our community livability grants. The general fund also earmarked $30,000 for a district manager position, and as you are probably aware, the City Council recently approved a pilot SDC exemption waiver program to incentivize workforce housing in the neighborhood. And even though the plan was just recently approved, there's been extensive outreach underway for the past year and a lot of early initiatives underway. So under the business vitality section, we've been focusing on entrepreneurship, both through our pop-up shop program, which is moving into Old Town Chinatown and opening shops in November, and we've just, there's been mention already of the Startup Challenge opening in October within the neighborhood, as well as PNCA's opening early next year. We also are seeing an active pipeline of storefront grants in the neighborhood as well. Under district livability, as I mentioned, we're using the Community Livability Grant Program in this neighborhood for the first time, and this was really an opportunity for us to help enhance the history and culture of the neighborhood and help fund community-initiated projects here. And we're just kicking off discussions around a district manager position. Then really around neighborhood investment, in addition to this project that we're speaking to today, we have recently approved and are moving forward with 2 hostel hotel concepts in the neighborhood and are seeing an active pipeline of pre-development grant projects that we are coupling then with the seismic assessments to get a better understanding of what it takes to develop projects here in Old Town Chinatown. The last thing I want to speak to is the district parking analysis that's underway. With this work, we are partnering with the Portland Bureau of Transportation to focus on district management plan for parking in this area. We're focusing on 3 different blocks within the district to look at how we have a sustainable approach to parking within the neighborhood. Currently, the district is underparked, and this will only increase as we see surface parking lots redeveloped and as we see currently underutilized buildings become reactivated. So within those 3 blocks, we are also looking at the policy implications within the Central City Transportation Management Plan and how parking ratios are different between preservation parking and growth parking, and how we can harbor growth parking to build those future garages to have a sustainable parking solution for this district moving forward. With that, I'll turn it back to Eric.
So let's talk about the property a little bit. The property is on Block 8L, it's on Block 8. We call it Block 8L because we already sold a quarter block of this property for the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine renovation project. So the remainder is Block 8L. It's 29,100 square feet. We acquired it in 2005. On the northern half of the property, there's a 75-space surface parking lot that we operate. There is a air, light, and access easement adjacent to the OCOM property that we granted to OCOM when that renovation project went forward. And that means the developer of our Block 8 property has to address that through the design process. The property is in the Skidmore Old Town National Historic District, which means it's subject to design review by the Historic Landmarks Commission. The property has environmental contamination on it. That's a combination of a plume that's in the groundwater on the northeast corner of the property that's from a petroleum spill from the property located directly north of here some time ago before it was a parking structure, as well as the property is really largely consists of fill material that's been brought onto the property or through demolition of buildings on the property. And that material has higher levels of certain elements. That means it either has to be taken off and handled in a certain way. And so what we're planning to do with that is have a holdback account that will reimburse the developer for those costs through the purchase and sale agreement. It's also a potential archaeological site. This was discovered when OCOM was doing their building renovation. Some archaeological artifacts from the mid-1800s to early 1900s settlement of Chinatown and Japantown were discovered. And while we don't know with 100% certainty that those artifacts will be found on our property, we've been in discussions with the State Historic President Office. We've been advised that it's very likely they're going to be found on our property. And so again, we're going to deal with that through the purchase and sale agreement. I'll talk about that in a second. It has an appraised value of $2.6 million. So the disposition for this process for this property started about a year ago. We issued a request for interest. We received 2 submissions which were evaluated, and from that Gerding Edlen was selected, and the primary factors for their selection were they proposed to develop the entire property in a single phase. They were proposing a mixed-use project that had a combination of office and residential uses, which was very attractive to us because it really meant the site was going to be activated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they were proposing a fair market value transaction, which was important to us as well. We executed a memorandum of understanding with Gerding Edlen in April 2014, and that really set the standards in terms of due diligence activities that needed to be done in order to get to the point where we had a negotiated purchase and sale agreement, which is where we are today. So Gerding Edlen has done quite a bit of due diligence and design work. They've had 2 meetings with the Historic Landmarks Commission already and received that feedback, so they're well into the design process for this property. What they're planning to build is a 6-story mixed-use building that will have about 80,000 square feet of leasable office space, 60 residential units on the top 2 floors. In terms of amenities, a roof deck that will be available to all the residents and tenants in the building, and then an improved and enhanced access way, that ground floor space between this new building and the Oregon College of Oriental Medicine that will be landscaped. It will have benches, lighting to make it safe and attractive place for people to hang out and pass through. The total investment in this project is about $37 million. Gerding Edlen is proposing to close on the project by the end of 2014, and they would plan to open the project in January of 2016. In terms of tenanting the project for the office, through their due diligence efforts, Gerding Edlen has signed letters of intent with 2 key tenants. The first is Ankrum Moyson Architects, which is a Portland-based architecture firm. They're currently not located in the central city. They're located in office space south of downtown. They view this as an opportunity to locate their office all in one building and provide room for them to grow, and they were really attracted to Old Town Chinatown. They're planning to lease at least 40,000 square feet, and they have an option to increase that as well. Gerding Edlen's also signed a letter of intent with the University of Oregon. As you know, University of Oregon is in the White Stag building across the street from this property. U of O is planning to locate their executive MBA program in this building, as well as their Masters of Sports Product Management, which is a brand new program that they're actually just getting underway right now. Their first cohort of students in that program will be actually entering the program a year from now. But in the meantime, they're launching that program slowly, and they're holding workshops and other activities geared towards people in the sports product industry. And both of these tenants really fit in well with PDC's cluster industries. Ankrum Moisen is a member of the Clean Tech cluster, and the U of O Masters of Sports Product Management really supports the athletic and outdoor cluster, really creating the next generation of people who are going to work in that industry here in Portland. So the purchase and sale agreement terms are attached to the resolution. Here are some of the highlights of that. The purchase price is $2.6 million. Gerding will provide us with a 10% earnest money payment due within 10 days of execution of the agreement. As I mentioned, we've estimated the environmental remediation cost to be about $615,000. What we're going to do is from that purchase price, we're going to hold that back in escrow. And as those expenses are encountered by Gerding, they will submit invoices to us, and we'll reimburse them for those expenses. The same thing holds for the archaeological costs. The only difference is the $350,000 for the archaeological holdback is an estimate that isn't yet based upon investigation on our property. The environmental holdback is really based upon extensive investigations that both we and Gerding have done. We've really narrowed down the scope of the environmental remediation. The archaeological costs are really sort of a little bit unknown. We've arrived at this figure through consultation with registered archaeologists and the State Historic Preservation Office. We're not going to know much more until the first phase of that investigation really happens. That first phase is basically digging potholes and trenches with a backhoe and having an archaeologist go through that material and see what kind of artifacts are actually found there. After that, we'll know a lot more about our property and how to characterize it. But for the time being, we're holding back $350,000 from the purchase price, and we'll treat that similarly as those archaeological costs are incurred by Gerding. We will reimburse them for those costs. Other than those holdbacks, there's no PDC investment in this project. The development must commence construction within 36 months of closing. Developer will be responsible for compliance with the environmental and archaeological laws. Key milestones is actually a fairly short period to closing on this project. As I mentioned, Gerding, we started this a year ago, so Gerding has done quite a bit of design and due diligence work. So for this deal, we have a 60-day due diligence period because they've really done most of their investigation, and a 60-day closing period at the end of that. So as I mentioned, Gerding is actually hoping to close on the property by the end of this year. And PDC retains a repurchase right if construction doesn't begin within 36 months of the effective date of the purchase and sale agreement. So that really concludes our presentation. We're asking you to approve Resolution 7073, and we're prepared to take any questions. And as I mentioned, Jill Sherman is also here in case you'd like to hear from her what her plans are for the property.
Well, thanks for the materials. One question I had was regarding the unknown. What if the archaeological cost is $1 million? What happens? I know it's a pie in the sky number, but what happens?
Well, I think our view on it is that that condition is a defect on the property, and that's something we need to pay for out of the purchase price. So I think our intent would be, if the cost really did get up to be that high, that we would probably come back to you with that information. And we would, since the holdback now is at $350,000, if through that phase 1 and phase 2 work, we identified that it was really going to cost $1 million, we would need to come back to the board, and you would need to approve increasing that amount to $1 million.
Hopefully whatever we find, we can sell for a lot of money and make up for the, no. Similarly, the environmental costs, these are reserves, so there's the possibility that the cost will not be as high as the reserve.
Correct.
And that way we wouldn't deduct the total amount from the purchase price.
Correct. And that would be our hope, yes.
Okay, and then a question I had on the appraisal was done in June or July? I'm sorry, I saw it on the screen.
I think it's July.
July.
Yes.
Part of that property has parking spaces on it that are leased, and there's income that comes in. Part of that has never been utilized for parking, so we didn't generate income on that, correct?
Correct.
And I'm just curious, when the appraisal was done, did they consider the possibility of the entire lot being leased, and that was factored into the potential income to get to a value for that property?
Yes, so on the southern quarter block that's currently vacant and doesn't have a surface parking lot, so I failed to mention this as part of the history, but when we acquired the property, there was a building on that portion of the property called the Oregon Mountain Community Building. We demolished that. So a parking lot can't be developed on that portion of the property. But yes, we talked to the appraiser about how to value the property and to take into consideration the income from the surface parking lot that we get. And the issue we deal with as PDC, as an urban renewal agency, is that when we sell a property, we have to comply with the statutes that regulate what we do. And among those obligations are that we have to, when we sell a property, we have to sell it for a use that's consistent with the urban renewal plan and has to be developed within a reasonable period of time that we determine. So when we talked to the appraiser about the income generated, we didn't think valuing the property on its income generation potential of the parking lot was the appropriate tool, because we're not going to sell it to somebody to operate it indefinitely as a surface parking lot.
Okay. And then finally, parking situation here a little bit different than a hotel where 15 to 20% of the parties bring a car. We've got office space, we've got residential. What kind of concerns do we have there?
Well, we're dealing with that two ways. One is a short term and the other is a long term. So in terms of the short term, we and Gerding Edlen are working with the Portland Bureau of Transportation to secure spaces in the Smart Park lot that's located directly north of here across Davis Street from this property that would enable the residents or tenants of this property to park in that Smart Park lot. So that's and then there's other, Gerding Edlen can also work with other surface parking providers or other parking lots in the area to secure parking as well. And then the long-term solution is what Sarah mentioned, is that I think the neighborhood does have a concern about a shortage of parking in this neighborhood. And in the long term, we are working towards a district parking strategy that would add public parking to the neighborhood.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, for a structure this size with the office space and the residential, how many parking spaces would typically be allocated to this much business space and residential space?
Somewhere between 50 and 125.
Okay. Pretty wide. All right.
I just want to say, we have a challenge in implementing the Old Town Chinatown Action Plan, in that we're trying to encourage development, both commercial and residential development, which means we're trying to bring more people into the neighborhood, and we don't have the ability to match that with parking. So part of what we're trying to do is push development that isn't parking dependent, and so it's a bit, I like to say, it's in kind of an awkward phase in this, that you're not going to see, the kind of typical parking associated with the development that happens. There's just no room in Old Town, and we're counting on the fact that it's so well served by transit, so walkable, that we're going to get much higher mode split with people who either live here or work here, because we're just not going to be able to park it the same way that you'd park somewhere else in the city.
Commissioner Mullis, any questions?
Well, the two items that Commissioner Wilhoit went through, we spent a fair amount of time in my briefing Monday morning, and they're of concerns to me as well. And I think we do need to look at the overall district, for a parking solution, rather than on a building by building mode. I mean, that makes sense, but that's a concern. And then I just hope the two financial holdbacks are enough to cover us. I'm hoping you're not back here 9 months from now saying we really need $1 million. So I hope there was caution used in establishing those numbers. And then the housing units are market rate, correct? Is there any kind of blend established yet? Is it one bedrooms? Is it studios? Is that been determined even yet?
Well, it's still in the design phase, but yes, it's a mix of studios, one bedrooms and two bedrooms, and I'd say it's leaning more heavily towards the studio side. Gerding Edlen has submitted an application to the Portland Housing Bureau to have some of the units be considered affordable and eligible for the multiple unit limited tax exemption program. And I think Jill could probably give you the exact breakdown on the numbers on where they are today on that.
Okay, that's a good project, thank you.
Commissioner Dixon?
Again, I think Commissioner Mullis and Wilhoit addressed some of the concerns I had from the briefing. Obviously, parking, we addressed it. It's a big deal within this district, and we are going to have to figure it out. It seems like everyone who works there is going to have to live there too to help with that. And I was just wondering on the history of the Old Town, the OCOM building and the costs associated with those archaeological discoveries. Did we find a link? What typically were those costs associated in that project?
I don't know what OCOM encountered in terms of costs. I know I've seen the report that they prepared and submitted to the State Historic Preservation Office. And we've had discussions around, how to estimate what we're likely to encounter.
Yeah.
And the way it works, my understanding is that in this phase 1 and phase 2 work, you basically identify and characterize what's there. And you then consult with the State Historic Preservation Office. And some of those artifacts you have to actually curate and turn over to a museum. But that doesn't mean you have to excavate the entire site that way, that once you basically know what's likely to be encountered there, and it's all of that same character, you're then allowed to excavate out the rest of the site without doing this careful archaeological investigation.
Okay. So these will be discovered fairly early on. In this
Correct.
process.
We're thinking in this first phase, we're going to get a good idea of what's to be found. And then there is a lot of discussion and work that you do with the State Historic Preservation Office that defines the scope of how much you have to actually excavate out and curate.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, and obviously with the unknown, when it becomes too large of a number of, then you may have to come back and we'll deal with that at that time. But I think we've thought of everything as best we can at this point.
Thank you. Would Jill Sherman from Gerding Edlen like to come up and address the commission? Welcome.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Chair Kelly and members of the commission. I'll just really, Eric and Sarah did a pretty thorough job of describing the project, so I will just give you a couple of updates to some of the things and then clarify a couple of the questions that you asked. So we've been actually to 3 design advice requests with the Landmarks Commission so far. We think at this point we've really addressed their concerns relative to design, and we have our formal design review hearing scheduled for the middle of October, and we're hopeful that will actually be approved in one hearing because of the multiple design advice requests that we've done. And actually it's resulted into a lot of changes to the design, and I think it's a great design. I think it's really developed through that work that we've done with Landmarks. We did get awarded the multifamily limited tax exemption for the project, so we've been notified by PHB. So that means we'll have 20% of the units, it's actually closer to 25%, that reflect the unit mix. That will be at 80% of area median income. About another, let's say, 50 to 60% of the units are probably at 100% of area median income, just how they're priced, where we think the market is and the kind of workforce housing that we're trying to address in the project. And then the rest of the about 20 to 30% of the units are slightly above that 100%. We've been to the Neighborhood Association now a couple times. We actually met with the full Neighborhood Association board just last week. They were really excited about the project and the design, so that was great to have them excited. They wanted to know, when they could sign their employees up for units in some of the housing. And we are very close, if not by the end of this week, then perhaps next week, to getting actually our leases signed with both University of Oregon and Mortenson. So that'll be a big milestone. And we've got we are in soliciting both investors and lenders. So that's really, at this point, the last piece of our due diligence. We have strong interest on both fronts, and Mortenson will actually be an investor in the building as well. So we are in good position to actually get closed and underway this year. And University of Oregon needs to, be open for students in January 2016. So we have a pretty firm schedule there to meet that. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thanks for coming.
Mr. Question over here.
No, I'm set. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Mullis? Thanks for coming in. Dixon?
Yeah, exciting project. I think it'll be great for our action plan, and just really spurring on more opportunities within this district. So thank you for.
Yeah, we're really excited too.
Thank you. Another exciting project. So, Resolution 7073, the chair would accept a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it. Thank you. Our next piece of business is Resolution 7074, an action item of approving a sublease agreement for the Portland Development Commission leased property and site improvements of up to $1,249,000 at Cascade Station in the Airport Way Urban Renewal Area. Bruce Wood.
Good afternoon. More parking. Well, this is a little different. We're actually building some. That's kind of nice. So good afternoon. My name is Bruce Wood. I'm the Real Estate and Construction Services Manager, and with me is Will Thier, the Senior Project Coordinator, who's been assisting me on this transaction. Also present in the audience is Steve Wells of Trammell Crow Company, who will provide testimony at the end of the presentation. The action and investment before you today will allow an anchor tenant at Cascade Station, Wells Fargo, to significantly increase the number of employees in their facility, bring approximately 200 plus new jobs to Portland, improve the value of our Cascade Station property, and provide ongoing income to the Airport Way urban renewal area. The resolution has two elements. The first, the approval of a long-term lease with Cascade Station Corporate Center 1, the owner of the adjacent office building that has a long-term lease with Wells Fargo. And two, approval to spend up to $1,249,000 in site improvements on parcel G for the lot. This slide illustrates the proposed portion of parcel G that will be improved. Cascade Station Corporate Center buildings are immediately to the right. Excuse me, got a little ahead of myself. So the request, although I have the resolution number wrong here, I thought it was 2992, but this will result, develop and lease a surface parking for the expanding Cascade Station tenant Wells Fargo. Back to this slide. This slide illustrates the proposed portion of parcel G that will be improved. Cascade Station Corporate Center buildings are immediately to the right. The total parcel size is 9.26 acres, 403,695 square feet. The lot will impact approximately 1.35 acres or 58,806 square feet. Access will be from Northeast Cascades Parkway, and the lot has been designed to accommodate a future development of the balance of the parcel. This next slide shows more detail of the lot improvements. It's approximately 150 stalls with enhanced pedestrian connection to Northeast Cascades Parkway. The main access has been designed to accommodate a future office building and development of the remaining approximately 8 acres. The tenant is responsible for all costs of operating and maintaining the lot, so the rent is absolute net to PDC. The lease term is 10 years with 4 5-year options. The initial rent is calculated as a percentage, 8.75% of the total project costs, which includes a market value attached to the land impacted by the lot. As you can see on this slide, the total cost, including the land value, is estimated at approximately $1,808,000. So the annual absolute net rent to the PDC is $158,200 a year. This rent increases 7.5% every 5 years, and then after 15 years, that escalation will be to market. A comment about the market value of the land. We're not selling land here, so it's really just coming up with an estimate of what the land is worth so we can plug it in the formula to get a return on it. To determine that, we used a variety of sources. Cascade Station parcels are difficult to value as there are no real market comps for sales of suburban land required to be developed for office space. Just hasn't been any done in a long time. The last comp we have is the sale to the hotel, which is just north of here. That value came in at $8.30 a foot, and it's about 1.5 years old. So we researched all the land sales in the area over the past 2 years through various sources, and we discussed the value with several brokers and obtained a broker opinion of value. And then looking at those, we settled on a value of $9.50 a foot as a fair market for this purpose. Given this is a project developed by the PDC, we've had a very strong focus on incorporating sustainable techniques into the project. It's not really a lead rating for parking lot, but there are many things we can do on this lot to incorporate sustainable techniques. All the lighting is LED, all the stormwater improvements to it, and as well as some other kind of smaller things, but wherever we could, we've incorporated those elements into the project. Furthermore, on the minority, women-owned, and emerging small business requirement, we're estimated that we're going to hit a 75% participation rate on that. So our staff has done a great job of reaching out to those contractors. So in conclusion, the benefits of this action are, it'll enable Wells Fargo to add approximately 285 jobs to the Cascade Station facility. It promotes both construction and employment in the Airport Way urban renewal area. It'll return PDC's investment in under 8 years and increase the value of our parcel today, and provides an ongoing revenue to the Airport Way urban renewal area. I know this is important, that we're done in Airport Way now. We can't issue any more debt, so generating this income is a way to provide more ongoing resources to the Airport Way urban renewal area. It generates approximately $23,500 a year in property taxes, and again, as I said before, it complies with all our PDC policies. So the action before you today is to approve the long-term lease with Cascade Station Corporate Center and spend up to $1,249,000 for the site improvements to the lot. Steve Wells is here, and unless did I catch everything? Okay, and he'd like to say a few words. Then we'll answer any questions that you might have about the deal.
Come on up, Steve.
Thank you, Bruce. I'm Steve Wells of Trammell Crow Company. Until recently, we were the owner of Cascade Station Corporate Center 1, which is half occupied by Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. We sold the building and our other building next door to it in April, and we're now consulting on the project to help get the parking lot finished. A little background, we were the developer of the Cascade Station project, and 15 years of involvement with it, and including all but a few of those when it was dormant, I was involved personally. I served on the design review committee. In fact, when we sold the building, I stepped off it, and I was the only remaining member of the design committee at that point. So Cascade Station is something we feel a lot of stewardship for and a lot of pride in how it turned out. And so we'll just give that as a background. For the current project, we approached Bruce last year with a problem. We had signed a 2-floor, 50% lease basically with Wells Fargo for the building. It was a huge deal for both the building and I think for the area. They intended to very densely populate the building, over 8 per thousand parking, and it is, very strong quality jobs, more than, on average, I think more than 3 times the Oregon minimum wage, and many of them new to Oregon. Some will come from Vancouver, but some were just new jobs. We did not have that much parking on the project. We told them we'd give them a maximum of 5 per thousand parking, and that was utilizing complementary parking with the sites on either side, a hotel and a school, a for-profit school that have a nighttime use and were able to lend us parking during the day. Wells Fargo knew that they were responsible for finding the rest of the parking to fully populate the building. They, Target across the street has a huge unused parking lot east of the store. And they had many conversations with Target that were yes, 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 starting with the general manager, closed on the lease, and then somewhere at the top of Target were told no, we won't. And they were willing to move off on Thanksgiving and not be there during the holidays and everything. And they weren't seeking free. They were going to pay good money for the parking. So that left them stuck. And thankfully, Bruce, I think personally, and PDC as an organization had a very creative structure to address the issue. We've also had great help from Elise Hendrickson in working on the project itself. And so we appreciate the approach. I think the benefits are there for everybody. The lease with Wells Fargo essentially took the occupancy in Airport Way Class A buildings to 100%. And you have additional land out there. There's now a critical mass of quality office buildings in the project to go with the retail and hotel amenities. The whole building will be 6 per thousand, have a density of 6 per thousand. And across the whole building, the wages are nearly $30 an hour on average. And with that, even though we're adding parking, the overall ratio in the project, there's parking maximums in the code and in the plan district that covers Cascade Station. The overall built uses now, even with this, will still be 1,000 stalls below what the maximums would have been befitting a really high-quality transit-oriented development. So overall, we think it's a win all the way around. We appreciate PDC's stewardship and creativity and help in this, and hope you'll approve it. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Wells?
I don't have any.
Any questions for staff?
No, I think it's a good solution to an opportunity to get some good jobs, which in turns generates more foot traffic and restaurant usage and everything else out there. So I think it's a good idea. Thanks.
Commissioner Dixon?
We might need you, Bruce, in the Old Town District here.
Yeah, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is.
No more surface parking lots.
Yeah, they're going to be structured lots.
Yeah, I know. No, I think this makes a lot of sense, and it's very creative and a good use of space that isn't even being used currently.
I would agree. Thanks for the effort.
All right, the chair will accept a motion on resolution 7074.
I'd move to approve.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, ayes have it. Motion carries. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. We'll reconvene the September 10th, 2014 PDC Board of Commissioners meeting. And we are going to take up issue number 8, which is Resolution 7075, authorizing the repayment of the outstanding loan used to finance the Armory building located at 128 Northwest 11th in the River District Urban Renewal District. Jina,
Bjelland.
I didn't want to take it on. Would you say it again?
Smith? No. Bjelland.
Bjelland? Get close, thanks.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. I've been called all sorts of names, so I answered anything. Commissioners and Executive Director Quinton, my name is Jina Bjelland, and I'm the Director of Real Estate and Lending here at PDC. We are here today for the proposed board action authorizing repayment of the outstanding Armory Building Loan A. On June 25th, 2014, you, the Board of PDC, passed a resolution authorizing the extension of the maturity date on Loan A to June 21st of 2024 at an interest rate of 0%. This loan modification proposal would authorize accepting payment of $1.25 million to extinguish the current outstanding principal and interest of $3.16 million. Portland Center Stage, the primary lessee of the Armory building, has agreed to continue to provide a community investment program over the next 10 years. Some of the highlights include social equity of wide-ranging participation and diverse community involvement and community outreach. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or further describe the community benefits.
So I just want to add that we, obviously, this arrangement came together at the end of last week, so there wasn't a ton of time to prepare a typical board report, but we also assumed that you had access to the June board report, which had extensive information on the history of the loan, the operations, those kind of things. But we're happy to bring anything else forward if you need it. But that's the reason why the report's so abbreviated. So.
Commissioner Mullis, any questions, comments?
Just a comment. I think this is a bit different from what we talked about a few weeks ago or a month or so ago. And I think it's appropriate for the commission to act now and find resolution rather than just to kick it down the road 10 years and let whoever's sitting here then deal with it. So I'm in favor of the proposal.
Commissioner Dixon.
I would agree with Commissioner Mullis's statements. I did miss the June meeting, but I've been able to look over the briefings and read a lot, and so I feel comfortable with us taking the initiative now and getting this resolved.
Yep. Well, and I'll second and third those comments. I think when we talked about this in June, key consideration was resources coming into PDC, and this particular proposal brings resources into PDC immediately. And I don't think there was any dispute in that meeting regarding the benefits of the Armory building and the Portland Center Stage and what they do for our community in downtown. It was a matter of let's resolve the issue by bringing resources into the organization, and that's what we're doing. So happy to see that. I would acknowledge and thank everyone who played a role, because this did come back to us very quickly. And from our perspective, as Commissioner Mullis mentioned, we don't like to see things linger when we can come to resolution, and I think we've come to a very reasonable resolution. And being a financial guy, I'm always looking at numbers. And when I look at the numbers and I look at the amount of debt that's outstanding, and you take this simple assumption that right now it's a 10-year interest-free loan, if you bring that to a present value, you're looking at something on the order of about $1.7 million, and we're looking at taking in about 1.2. So roughly speaking, the benefit is timing of money coming in versus waiting to receive it. And we know there are some challenges in the nonprofit arena with regard to certainty, so I'm happy to see this level of funding coming in. I'm happy to see the parties at the table, and I'm looking forward to redeploying those resources in Old Town Chinatown where they're needed. So thank everyone for the contributions.
Thank you, Jina. I'd like to have Greg Ness representing the Armory Theater Fund and Peter Potwin representing the Portland Center Stage. And also Mike Golub from the Portland Timbers.
Thank you very much, Commissioners, for allowing us to speak with you briefly today. As was noted, we took to heart the feedback that we received from the June Commission meeting, went away and looked at the opportunities to raise money in other ways, looked at our ability to fundraise. We went back and talked to our lender about other financial capabilities, and it is because of those actions that we're here before you today with an offer of $1.25 million cash immediately with continuation of the 10-year community investment plan as well. We will finance that $1.25 million by putting additional debt on the building, which will, in essence, match the theater's ability to service that debt. It is the maximum debt load that the theater can service. I'll ask Peter Potwin, who's with me here today, who's the chair of the PCS Finance Committee, to comment briefly on that. Peter.
Okay, thank you. I've been on the board 3 years and in the finance committee and the last 2 years as treasurer, and like Charles, I have a financial background as well, and nobody told me it was going to be this tough in a theater nonprofit arena. Once I found out I got on the board, it's difficult. It's always a challenge. Briefly, we just finished our year in June. We did about $8.2 million is the size of our operation, and we made $4,000. That was it. Our financials are audited, so prior years have been similar to this. It's been a struggle. We rely a lot on contributed income. In fact, 45% of what we took in last year was contributed income. So we are hitting the community hard and asking for a lot of people, a lot of folks to come up with money just to make our operating position break even. So we do have an accumulated deficit. We're working on that as well. Cash on hand, we don't have any cash on hand. We're always borrowing. We have a small line of credit at a bank, and we use that most of the year. So no reserves, and that's where we're at. So I think that says it.
Thank you. Finally, I'd note that the additional debt will stress the theater to some extent, although we're hopeful the theater will be able to handle it. As Peter alluded to, the theater needs to raise between $3.5 and $3.75 million every year just for an opportunity to break even. The additional debt load to make this payment to PDC equates to about $11,000 of additional debt service beyond that which the theater has carried historically. You can tell with a net of only $4,000 this last year, that's going to be a challenge for the theater itself. But we believe that they'll find a way to make it happen. So with that.
Thank you. Questions?
And asking this question after hearing about a 4,000 profit margin probably won't go over great, but I'll ask it anyway. I know there's been some discussion, and we've raised the notion of this community investment program being one of the benefits that we as a community and PDC are receiving in exchange for giving the debt. And the question is, if those benefits are not achieved on a continuing basis over the term of that community investment program, what you might be willing to do and what we might ask you to do. And I understand that there's been some discussion and some agreement that if those community benefits are not achieved on an annual basis, we are going to discuss some level of compensation or benefit that would be paid basically to the community through PDC.
We are willing to enter into that discussion, absolutely. If you look at the track record of this theater over the last 10 years, you will see significant community benefits that have accrued each and every year. There is absolutely no intention whatsoever to deviate from that. That is part of the mission of this theater, and we'd be happy to enter into that discussion.
Commissioners?
Thanks, Charles, for suggesting that.
Yeah.
Thanks for agreeing to it.
Absolutely. Makes good sense.
So I just, want to comment that I have some amount of history with that, with the organization, because I was on the community advisory group for the new market tax credits and watched all those years of frankly, the best compliance of any of the organizations that we were dealing with. So there's a good track record there.
Thank you.
So,
I think the question is whether or not the resolution as written covers that, or whether you want to do anything to amend the resolution to cover Commissioner Wilhoit's comment or question.
And I would just propose an amendment that states Portland Center Stage is committing to its community investment program. There are measurable metrics relating to that program, and in discussion with Director Quinton, Portland Center Stage will agree upon those measurements and a reporting process on at least an annual basis. And to the extent that they're not met, there will be some financial or economic consideration of a meaningful amount that will be bestowed back to PDC and the community.
That's acceptable to us.
so do we need to vote on the amendment first?
You need to make a motion for the amended language. I don't know how specific the language needs to be, or whether we can take this. Okay, so we have it on tape, so we'll capture the language in the amended resolution, but you need to vote on the amendment to the resolution and then vote on the amended resolution.
Okay, so
I would propose that amendment, but won't try to repeat it.
okay. Do we have a second on the unrepeatable amendment?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now in the resolution itself as amended, Resolution 7075, do I have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very
gentlemen.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Our final agenda item today is an information update on the PDC-owned property in Northeast MLK Boulevard and Alberta Street in the Interstate corridor. We have Trang and Jina Smith here to tell us about that. Yeah, I need more practice.
I've got this one. Don't you do realize there are 2 Jina Bs in the agency?
I do realize that. I've already been in trouble with the other one, so.
Well, you got one of our names right. Perfect pronunciation. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Kelly, Commissioners, and our Executive Director, Quinton. He is probably around here. My name is Trang. I am the Neighborhood Manager, and again with me is Jina Bjelland, Director of Real Estate and Lending. We're here today to give you an update on a positive forward movement on the MLK Alberta project in the Interstate Corridor Urban Renewal area. We were last before you in November 2013 for the approval of a disposition and development agreement between PDC and Majestic Realty for this project, a 1.79 acre site at the corner of Martin Luther King Boulevard and Alberta Street. Shortly after that meeting, the original grocery anchor backed out of the deal. Since then, we've had a lot of movement forward. In March, the mayor met with a group of North-Northeast community stakeholders and leaders and directed PDC to continue moving the project forward with Majestic and Kohl's Construction as a prime contractor to build out the urban retail shopping center as proposed in the DDA. He also directed PDC and the Portland Housing Bureau to add an additional $20 million in tax increment funding for affordable housing in Interstate. In May, PDC and PHB provided a public forum to update the community on the progress of these 2 efforts. PDC announced that it would give Majestic 90 days to find a new anchor tenant, and PHB announced their community involvement process to develop the North-Northeast neighborhood housing strategy to help direct the additional housing investments. We're happy to report that on August 28th, the mayor met with the same group of North-Northeast community leaders to announce the Natural Grocers had executed a letter of intent with Majestic as the new anchor tenant for this project. After that meeting, a joint press release from the mayor and Natural Grocers was released. As you can see, there's still a lot of work ahead of us. PDC is underway with forming a project working group that will provide input into building and site design and help develop a community benefits agreement. The group will include representatives from nearby businesses, neighborhoods, businesses, and community associations. The group will self-select into 2 subgroups, one focusing on project design and the other helping develop the CBA. The CBA expected to include areas of interest such as employment opportunities with the new grocery anchor, local retail tenanting opportunities in the second commercial building, and contracting and construction jobs. We are kicking off the project working group meetings the first week of October, denoted by the star up there, the first star that you see. And then we're expecting the group to complete their work by mid-December. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jina to give you some additional project information and some next steps.
Thank you, Trang. As you can see on this slide, the project will include 2 buildings, the anchor grocery store on the southeast portion of the lot, and a second building to the north, which will include somewhere between 4 and 10 commercial spaces. PDC will be working with Majestic to tenant at least 50% of these spaces with small local businesses. The anchor tenant, Natural Grocers, was established in Denver, Colorado in 1955. They have expanded and now have stores in 14 states with 8 stores in the state of Oregon. Their founding principles include nutritional education, including free nutritional classes to individuals and community groups, as well as a nutritionist on staff at each store. They have high-quality products. They have a rigorous screening and approval process of their products, including selling organic, fresh produce. Affordable prices. They work hard to source products and secure affordable prices for their customers. Community is a big commitment in their principles. They are committed to the communities they serve, not only through free nutritional classes and nutritional counseling, but they have a community room in the store, available for the community for meetings and a variety of activities and demonstrations related to the store. They source local products, and they provide a community donation program. Employment is another one of their key ingredients. They provide benefits and focus on supporting a balanced lifestyle for all of their employees. In parallel with the work Trang's team is completing with the project working group, we will have initiated a process with the city to resolve the public alley access that runs through the site north and south. Once the working group completes their input on design, Majestic will submit for design review, which is expected to occur sometime in January of 2015. Following design review, the project will submit for permitting with construction groundbreaking anticipated to be sometime in the spring of 2015. We will be coming back to the board in January of 2015 with either an informational item or an action item on the disposition and development agreement. At that time, we will also provide a summary of the community benefits agreement and work performed and completed to date. Thank you very much. We are happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm pleased to acknowledge that Adam Milne, owner of Old Town Pizza, is here in the audience to testify, as is Philip Brown, Vice President of Majestic Real Estate. Thank you.
I'm going to correct that a little bit. Adam is not in the audience today. Thank you.
He's not appearing telephonically either, huh?
Maybe there's a pizza down the street.
Any questions for these two before we have Mr. Brown up?
No, happy to see us, as I stated earlier, moving forward. It's been a challenging circumstance, but we still have forward momentum, so we're feeling good.
I think it's an understatement to say that we're excited to see it moving forward.
And as I mentioned in our previous conversations around this, we want to come back to the board at regular intervals, and then it's still the question of whether the development agreement needs to be reauthorized by the board, but that we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But we want to make sure you're fully up to speed on everything that's happening as we're moving through the process.
And given what's gone on to date, I think that's a really good thing. I mean, This is a public meeting. It's been noticed. Everybody in the world has the opportunity to be here. So I think that's a smart way to play it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, welcome.
You get to close the day.
Thank you. Philip Brown from Majestic Realty. Just, I was asked by Patrick to come today to answer any questions maybe the board may have in terms of timing of the project, what's happened so far since we've been meeting in the last 6 months really on this issue. So I'm really here just from an informational standpoint if there's any questions the board has.
Question I have, how many of these types of projects has Majestic done as far as building for retail grocery?
Oh gosh, we probably have right now several million square feet of retail. In terms of what Majestic does, this has been an interesting quest for us in that this is probably, well, it's not probably, this is the smallest project we've ever done. And so it was something we wanted to do to help give back to the community, to the city. We've never developed within the city limits of Portland, so we saw this as a good opportunity to jump in and do that. So we've got projects across the United States, industrial, retail, office, hotel, a few sports venue items that we do, things like that. So we're a national company, but we're a little unique in that we're family-owned. Been around since 1948. We've got 75 million square feet of product across the country. And a couple of nice notes of distinction, we've never had a project go back to a lender, and we haven't ever been in default of a loan. So we've got a very good long-range history in the development field, and 99% of what we do is ground-up construction, ground-up development.
I noticed you were a trooper and you've been here for most of the day. You have any insights for us on those parking questions you were asking
I'll
earlier?
leave that to Patrick.
Thanks for coming, appreciate it,
Thank
and
you
good
very
luck with
much.
everything.
And we appreciate staff's help and everyone's enduring through
Yeah,
this project.
it's a strong team and they work hard, so we're happy to see this moving.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sticking with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Being no further business, we are adjourned.
Thanks.
Thanks.